Hey everybody, welcome to Game Breaking News with me, Jeff Grubb, your host from GiantBomb.com. Thank you for tuning in. In this episode, we're going to be talking about more news from Nintendo about that Switch 2 reveal, and fans are letting Nintendo have it about the price of the games and the system. It's going to be a good one. We have Jason Fanelli on the show. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm still recovering. Yesterday was a wild one.
It was nonstop.
We had a nonstop all day, and then we did the kid pickup thing, and I had rehearsal last night. Just a long Wednesday. But man, so much to talk about: the good, the bad, the ugly, the confusing. It's just a full banquet of Nintendo news to take in, and I think I finally got my head on about it, but there's probably some things that we've missed that we're ready to talk about here, and I'm excited to do that.
Yep. It's people are doing in this chat what they're doing in the Nintendo Treehouse chat right now, which is just yelling, "Drop the price!"
The price.
Look, I have no control.
Raise the price.
I have no control over what the power block costs you in your countries, everybody. It's just going to be what it is, and I'm sure our U.S. government will make announcements here pretty soon. They'll make everything more expensive right as soon as we're done here. Yeah, listen, it was nonstop yesterday. One podcast after another, one show after another. I think at one point, Lucy got married to some guy she met on the street and made a pizza hat with AI and Enzoy. It was a hell of a thing. But we have more Nintendo Switch 2 stuff to talk about, so we'll get into all that here pretty soon. But previews did start coming out today. People got hands on with that thing. I guess just in general, where is your excitement level? Where is your sort of personal relationship with the price at? All that stuff.
I was in the 400 to 450 range, so I was prepared for that. 500 with a game inside. Again, I was prepared for 450 console. 500 with a game inside. I was probably going to pay for that if there wasn't a game involved. So yes, that part did not shock me. I understand the apprehension. I do. I understand that it is a lot of money to ask for a game console, especially in a time of, let's nicely call it, uncertainty as far as what things are happening outside of our control. But I think the more interesting conversation for me is the software and the fact that we're talking $70, $80. There was a 90 thing floating around, but I feel like that was just a EU price that was converted to American dollars. I have not seen any USD $90 physical games. Have you?
No, I haven't. And people are like, Mario Kart's going to be $90 on the website. They say the retail price that they're suggesting is $80. I guess it could be more.
Right.
It's usually not how it works. But honestly, €90 is way more. Like a euro is still worth more than $1. So that's quite a bit of money. So I get why people are confused and trying to figure this out. And I think you're right. Like, the hardware price is one thing. I think we were kind of all anticipating something definitely more than what the Switch 1 costs. But I think everyone's like, well, maybe we'll get 400. And we'll talk in more details about all this because there's plenty to say and plenty of reasons why people think this is happening. But it is that game price that people are really hurting at right now. And I don't know, because we just did this dance with $70 and I'm sure it had a couple percentage points depression on game sales for a little bit, but it's mostly been digested and gone through the system, and everyone's like, that's just normal now. And I think that's probably just going to happen again here. But people are at the end of the rope with price increases. Absolutely. Around the world, everyone's just feeling it. I mean, you go through a list of things that have gone up in price in your life. And it's like, okay, well, boy, my house is worth more, so now my property taxes went up a ton, so my mortgage is more every month. And all right, well, I need a home, so I'm going to keep paying that one. Kind of don't have a choice there. That's a big bummer. That's a lot of money. It's like all the money I just got from my cost of living increase. Hooray! Oh no, that's all just gone immediately. So let's look around where I can cut, and it's like, well, now we're not talking about cutting. We're talking about games being more expensive. So it's like, okay, geez, and it's Nintendo. They don't lower the price of their games. So it's just so easy to look at a future where it's like, they're pricing me out of the hobby that I've, built my life around. Yeah, I think people are getting a little bit sick of hearing the explanation of, well, the United States is getting tariffs, and it's well, that's not us. That has nothing to do with us. Although all the markets are connected, everything feeds into one another, and unfortunately, what happens in the United States kind of does set a tone, because they want to be like, that's the baseline price that we're kind of like trying to aim for, and then everything else is calculated off of that. That's how a lot of these companies operate, even Nintendo. And so it's I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we're like this. I'm sorry that we're doing this. But that's where we're at.
I don't think it's helping either that we have now seen some games that are 70, some games that are 80. Are they going to keep doing this back and forth? Is it going to depend on the game? Are we really going to pay a $10 premium for first party? Is that a possible thing that could happen? There's too many unanswered questions, and which is weird to say coming out of a 60-minute announcement video that this Switch 2 Direct was. The fact that the price wasn't in there at all makes sense, because they film it 2 months prior, and they don't know what the price was going to be, perhaps because of all of the uncertainty. But now I think you need to have some sort of, not follow-up, but like there needs to be more information out there. And there were even some things that they were cagey about, reading previews and things at the event yesterday. Like, they would not answer the question about battery life. That to me is very silly. This caginess for something as trivial as battery life, or as important as what are we going to be paying you for the foreseeable future, you can't have it.
Yep.
They need answers, and Nintendo, historically weird, just can't afford that now, to use a pun. They have to come out and be as clear as possible with their plan so people can plan accordingly, especially when you're going to drop a console 2 months after you announce all of these details. Something just doesn't, it's not clicking for me.
Well, let's just get into it. So let's explain what we do here most weekdays. I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Breaking News, or find the RSS feed on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the show with Nintendo Switch 2's $450 price tag was likely influenced by Trump tariffs, experts say. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. The price of Nintendo Switch 2 could have been affected by U.S. President Donald Trump's trade tariffs, expert analysis claims. The Switch 2's price of $450 in the U.S. is considered at the higher end of what was realistically expected. And analysts suggest Nintendo's decision may have been in anticipation of an impact by any tariffs imposed by Trump. Trump has been imposing tariffs on numerous countries in recent weeks, including a sizable tariff on China, where tech products are often manufactured. On Wednesday, he also introduced a blanket 10% tariff on all imports, with countries like China and Japan, and what Trump calls the worst offenders getting larger tariffs of 54% and 24% between China and Japan. Now, we'll kind of mention it here, but I'm going to read the rest of this as well. China is one of the places where Nintendo was manufacturing Switch hardware for a long time, in anticipation of trade issues with the United States, along with, just a desire to diversify where they're producing stuff in the first place, because you never know what's going to happen with geopolitical issues and your relationship with China. They did begin manufacturing a lot of hardware components in Vietnam and Cambodia. Well, let's keep reading the story to see how the tariffs are doing on those two countries. It's not great. A report by the Financial Times suggests that the Switch 2 price is an indication that Trump's tariffs will have an effect on video game prices. Japanese video game analyst and founder of Kantan Games, Serkin Todo, told the publication that he believed the Switch 2 price took Trump's recent behavior into account, saying the price suggested Nintendo was building a buffer in case tariffs hit supply chains harder than expected. A separate report from the Financial Times last month suggested that Nintendo had already been shifting production away from China since Trump's first administration stated its intent to upend global trading, noting that more than half of the hardware and Nintendo imports into the U.S. comes from Vietnam and Cambodia. However, the tariffs imposed by Trump on Wednesday, which he says will go into effect on April 9th, include a 46% tariff on Vietnam and a 49% tariff on Cambodia. According to Financial Times sources, hundreds of thousands of Switches Switch 2s, have already been sent from Vietnam to Nintendo's U.S. facilities since the start of the year, perhaps in anticipation of such a move. Financial analyst David Gibson told the publication, export data combined with finished product codes confirms that Nintendo shipped a finished Switch 2 from Vietnam across 5 days in January for a total of 383,000 units, with all of them going to the USA. I suspect this occurred to test the distribution system and get ahead of the risk of tariffs. I expect the number to have ramped up significantly in February and March. So a couple things there. Nintendo was trying to get as many Switch 2 systems into the United States before these tariffs hit. And that is a little unusual for they try to, like, they don't want to have hardware sitting in warehouses. That's expensive, actually, just to have stuff sitting there. They try to keep the supply chain as taut as possible. Like, as soon as it reaches its country of destination, you want to sell it pretty quickly after that. In this case, they're like, well, that cost is going to be kind of trivial compared to these tariffs, so let's get it there. And so they're already making changes to how they're operating to avoid these things. It is not a stretch at all. In fact, I think it's most of the explanation for why the price is what it is, even globally, that the uncertainty caused by the tariffs forced Nintendo to go to the higher end of the spectrum and even do things like bundle in Mario Kart at $500, the bundle that is very likely to be most readily available, in my opinion. I think that is, they're like, we need to get this price, is like the price we initially get from someone needs to be around $500. How can we make that make sense? Well, we'll average that out over the course of the life by including Mario Kart the whole time, so people feel like they're getting a deal. Now, is that going to work? Right now, people don't, I mean, if you just go like gauge the reaction in the Nintendo chat on the Treehouse live stream right now, none of this is working. Everyone is furious. All you see in chat is drop the price, and a lot of other angry comments. But I don't know. Like, they don't really have too much of a choice. I suppose they could have tried to go at $400 and just hope for the best, that they could eat some of the cost of the tariffs. But 50% of the cost of the Switch 2, they're going to have to pay in taxes just to bring it to the United States. That is untenable. They can't make that work. So I'm not surprised that they tried to find a price point that they could get away with. That's the whole thing that they try to do in all these situations. And here they had to get away with more than they've ever gotten away with before because of the economic situation. So where do we go from here, Jason?
Unfortunately, it is an impossible situation, because you're either going to take a bath on every Switch 2 unit that you sell, which in Nintendo's case, I don't know what their reserves are like. They have always been one of the most successful developers and publishers, so perhaps they have a sizable enough war chest that they could have taken a hit for a little while until this whole thing smooths over, if it ever smooths over. That's the problem. If you take that approach, you can't go up. Once you open that Pandora's box, you have to stay there. And if you just continue to take a bath on every single one that you do, that's going to bankrupt you. So they went for, I hope, the highest possible outlier. And then if things start to smooth out, maybe they come down from there, whether it's bundling a game with the $449 as well. Like, you can purchase a game, maybe not Mario Kart, that's always with the $500 one, but maybe you can get one of the Switch 2 edition ones for $450.
What's it called? The Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, that digital brochure that they're charging for.
Let's bundle that in there. I think we're going to get into that a little bit, but that price is not what I expected when I heard about it. I'm just glad it's not $80.
Yeah.
But it's an impossible situation that shouldn't be. I mean, if we're going to really get into it, this shit should not be happening, right? It's not normal. None of this is normal.
It's straight up bad. Like, I mean, let's be clear. The tariffs are a bad strategy almost 100% of the time, and like, again, that's my opinion. But I'm someone who's like been curious about tariffs for a long time. I remember like learning about it, like listening when I first got interested in economics after the 2008 financial crisis, and I was mostly just listening to a lot of books on tape, listening to a lot of like Planet Money on NPR. They would do stories about tariffs, and it was just like, we had a tariff on imported trucks because Europe had a tariffs on our chicken, and we were mad at them, and because of that, we still 70, 80 years later have a tariff on imported trucks, like mid-sized trucks. And so that's why the F-150 has been the best-selling truck and doesn't have competition in the United States, really, because all these companies have to do these other things to get around them. And it's like, well, why don't we just get rid of the tariff? Because that's politically, there's no reason why any politician ever wants to get rid of tariffs. Because once it's there, it's like, oh, we're going to make things a little bit harder for our local, our domestic businesses. That seems like a loser, and it always is. So once these tariffs are in place, they are very difficult to get rid of. We still have, I think, the vast majority of the tariffs that Trump put in place on China and other countries in the first administration. Some of them lapsed. There was a timer on them. Some of them did lapse, but a lot of them are still there. Biden didn't get rid of them. He did not. It was like, hey, let's get rid of all this stuff that was a pretty bad idea. It's like, it's there, whatever. We'll just kind of go as this is the norm now. So there's a chance like these things are here for the next 50 years. Like that is what we're talking about. And so it's like, this is just going to, like, these companies can't just hope for the best. They have to operate under the worst case scenario, because the worst case scenario continues to happen with these sorts of things. So at a certain point, I don't blame Nintendo too much, although I fully understand the anger.
No, for me too. It's sticker shock. It is pure and simple sticker shock, and that creates anger and dismay and disdain and all that stuff. I completely agree with all of that. Although I will say, with these tariffs in particular, I think it'll be a lot easier.
It should be easier
to overturn them because of who they're associated with.
That's right. There's a better chance of these getting overturned. Correct.
And if there's any, anyone with any brains or cajones on the other side of the aisle, they are taking all of this reaction, they are paying attention to all this, and they are going to hammer the hell out of that message between now and when the tariffs go live, if that even happens, right? They AOC, Bernie, whoever it wants to be, Cory Booker, whoever it is, they need to be saying right now, do you see this? This is in one sector, it's in one industry. This could be all of them if you're not getting on board with us being against this crap right now. Will that happen? I will not hold my breath. Yeah, I will not do it. But it needs to happen, because this is just going to keep happening. Everyone keeps using the specter of Grand Theft Auto 6 behind this, right? And how Take-Two's probably licking their chops to make the standard game $100. That the percentage chance of that happening, I think, completely flipped as soon as that price as soon as Nikki Grayson said $79.99 on that talkover, my brain went to, oh shit, Grand Theft Auto is going to be $100.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously at least $80, right? There's no way it's not $80, right?
No, not a chance in hell it's less than $80.
Like zero, not one. Literally 0% chance that Grand Theft Auto 6 is less than $80. Now, 80 to 100, I think it could be anywhere in that spectrum. I think that's a likelihood. Above 100, pretty unlikely, but like $90 for Grand Theft Auto 6 kind of also seems like, well, if you can do 80 and you're not, you're like, well, look at Grand Theft Auto 6 compared to Mario Kart, right? Like that's the thing that they're going to be thinking. So they're probably going to do 90, and at that point, why not just do 100? Like, it's so easy for them to kind of like, sort of kick that can down the road and be like, let's just go a little bit further. And I think they're saying to themselves correctly, it'll still sell. And I think that's the thing that we're at with the Switch 2 and Mario Kart and all these game prices. I think, like, despite the backlash, that the system's going to sell. And then if they have to lower the price, they can. But I think they're willing to see how far they can push it. And if we get to a year from now, a year and a half, 2 years out, and it's still like it's kind of selling pretty close to what the Switch 1 was doing, I think they will absolutely just keep going. If there's any sort of like headwind, they can't now, as you said, have the opportunity to lower the price. They were always going to struggle to raise the price. So starting on the high end is what they're going to do, and they're going to like always do what they can get away with. And I think they're probably right that they're going to be able to get away with this. As unfortunate as that is, but that's the case here.
I know my goofy ass is going to be trying to pre-order it next week, and
that's where a lot of this is coming from. Like I can only be so mad when I'm also going to be the sucker who's going to be there day one trying to pre-order it. I can only be. It would be very hypocritical
of me. Yeah, it would be very hypocritical of me to be like, this price sucks, and then start clicking my F5 on whatever website I decide to go on trying to pre-order this thing. So, it is amazing to me how impossible of a situation this is, and how avoidable it all could have been if people weren't so dumb, I guess is the word I'm looking. I don't know. It's depressing, really.
Yep.
It's this is supposed to be something I take joy in every day, and I feel like a little bit more that joy is getting slowly pulled out of me. It won't go away forever. It won't all go away. I promise you that. But it's becoming harder and harder to defend this medium that we follow.
I mean, dumb doesn't even begin to do it justice. I don't know if people saw like how someone discovered how they decided what percentage of tariff they were going to charge for each country.
I did not.
The administration claims that they did a lot of like deep calculations by looking at the tariffs that these countries charge on us, as well as non-tariff barriers, things that raise our costs or whatever when we're releasing stuff in their countries, when we're exporting to their countries. And it's like, okay, so what tariffs can you show us? And they really couldn't show us. And then someone was like messing around with the numbers, and what they ended up doing was taking our exports to like Cambodia versus what Cambodia exports to us, and they just divided those two numbers, and then that percentage is the percentage of the tariff in every single case. It is a fundamental, catastrophic misunderstanding of how these things work, and then to go out and claim that this is based on the non-tariff barriers. It is just like an easier way to explain this is, how you have a trade deficit with the store you go to buy your stuff. Like it would be like getting angry that you spend more money at the store than the store spends at your house. That's what they're doing here with every country on earth. It's like you're the country with most money. Naturally, you're going to spend more money in other countries than they spend here. That is just how things work. And so they just did the dumbest shit imaginable to come up with made up numbers. It's beyond embarrassing. It is beyond idiocracy now. Like we're past that point. It's dumber than anything we ever could have imagined. And this is what companies trying to sell stuff to us has to deal with. Like at a certain point, I just can't be mad at Nintendo because I have to be mad at the real idiots.
And people will say, they'll start getting into the whole because you're a fanboy, right? And that just look at me right now. Anyone who's watching this. Get that shit out of your mind. It has nothing to do with who we like. All of it. We're just saying the same thing if it was Microsoft with the new Xbox.
Oh, and they're going to be raising prices here soon. Give them 30 minutes.
Yeah, and the same thing with Sony if it was a PlayStation. This shit sucks no matter who it is. So lay off that fanboy bullshit. It's missing the forest for the trees. There are way more important issues here than brand loyalty. If that's your first thought, you're part of the problem. Straight up.
Yes, you are distracted by stuff that is made up marketing to get you to spend more money on one brand. Don't be a sucker. There's more to talk about with a lot of that, but let's read this next story that's still very related. Higher game prices could become the norm after Switch 2 reveal, analysts predict. This comes from Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. One of the big surprises following this week's Switch 2 deep dive was the price tag for Mario Kart World, as the game has a suggested retail price of $80 ahead of its June 5th release. This is a major increase, especially at a time when consumers are still debating the value of high-profile games, increasing from $60 to $70. And according to analysts, this could become the new standard for the industry. In a breakdown of the Switch 2 and its pricing, analysts at Nico Partners discussed the impact of Mario Kart World at its price. While there has been some sticker shock regarding the price of games increasing from 60 to 70 or 80, these price points are set to become industry standards over the next 2 years, especially so for Nintendo first-party games, Nico Partners explained. One reason for the higher price is the increased cost of new and faster game cards themselves, with higher capacities being more expensive to manufacture than a PS5 Blu-ray disc. It is worth noting that the certain Switch 2 game cards will only contain keys on the cart that they can be used to authenticate a purchase and then download a game directly to the console. Whether these games will cost $60 or $70 remains to be seen. But another Switch 2 game, Donkey Kong Bonanza, does have an MSRP of $70. The other concern here is that Nintendo will likely set a new precedent for game prices with Mario Kart World, allowing other publishers to follow suit and charge $80 for new games. So, Jason, I've been asking around a little bit. Hey, well, what do you think? What do the people that you work for think? They're all ecstatic. They are all so excited that Nintendo did this. They are pretty much like they were waiting for someone to do it, and they're like, and the fact that it's Nintendo doing it, the one that does have the ability to get away with the most, because they do have the most hardcore fan base in a lot of ways, they're just like, yep, we are right behind you. Like, give us a little bit of time, and $80 will be the cost of our games as well. Everyone wants to do this, and Nintendo paving the way has been big for them. So I think people should exercise their critical voice. They should be in Nintendo's chat saying, I hate this, lower the price.
Yep, I agree.
I do wonder how much of that pressure is really going to be felt by Nintendo when they have all of these cost pressures and all this other stuff, like really kind of informing this. And again, I think they're going to wait and see. Like, they're not going to lower the price of anything before this stuff comes out. No. They're going to go with this and see what happens. And then it's up to people to actually follow through it and not purchase these things if they are on the fence. And I do think a lot of people did move from one side of the fence to the other when they saw the prices. And if that maintains that, and then people don't like eventually talk themselves into it, so a price could come down. They could find ways to have more frequent discounts, at least, something we didn't see from Nintendo a lot last generation. And I think in the meantime, people should maybe look around for other ways to be interacting with games. Now, suddenly, PC gaming really does look like the cheapest way to be playing games. It's like, yeah, why not like kind of go get a Steam Deck and enjoy those Steam sales every time, and just kind of wait for a game to go down in price after 6 months, something that won't happen with the Nintendo first party. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of forces at play here, but I think the way it's trending is prices are not just going to come down from Nintendo. Everyone else is going to raise their prices to meet where Nintendo is now at.
Yep, rising tide lifts all boats. That is the saying, right?
Our boats, get left behind. Yeah,
it's the meme of the kid of the woman holding the one kid in the pool, and then the other kid's drowning, and then there's a skeleton underneath them all. That we're the skeleton, and then that's Nintendo's the $80 and everybody coming up to it. The idea of a pricing Cold War happening and waiting for the next someone to make the jumps that we can all say, oh, they did it too. Would not surprise me at all. That makes perfect sense. And the fact that, like you said, the fact that it's Nintendo who has led the charge here is just going to embolden them even more. And it's going to be $80 a pop, both physically and digitally. I don't think there's going to be any difference there. If you thought paying $60 for a digital license that you don't actually own was bad, if you want to keep up, guess what? You're going to be doing it at 80 now. And that's just how this thing is going to go. And it sucks. And there's no other way to describe it. It's just, I'm now more worried about, people were talking about how the layoffs that we have suffered over multiple years were indicative of a bubble, right? I mean, you and I have talked about how it's just normal industry retraction after the surge that was the pandemic era. But now if you're combining shrinking labor force with higher prices, are we now talking about a potential bubble? Like, is that something that we could maybe now consider happening? Because if you're shrinking your labor force, but nobody's buying the games again because they're too expensive and they're sticking with the PC gaming thing, there's a lot of things that are spooking me now. I will say, as far as the, lowering the price eventually, if this does not pan out thing, there probably are some levers that we're not even thinking about that Nintendo could pull to get there and make it feasible for them. But I don't think they drop the price of this console in the first year.
No way.
I think we're talking next year, unless it's catastrophic.
Yes.
Unless nobody buys this thing, it sells less than what they shipped in January and February and March, as we talked about earlier, and it becomes the, sorry guys, Vita. Then maybe we have an issue. But is that going to happen? Do you see any world where this thing doesn't sell out?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen a lot of comparisons people have made between this Switch 2 Direct and these announcements and the price to, to the Wii U and the 3DS. And it's like, okay, the Wii U is a worst case scenario where that was completely misreading the room and not having a system to meet the times and all these other problems. And that was a complete failure for 4 or 5 years, and they had to really reset everything. The 3DS was a good system that was too expensive. And people wanted it, but it was just too expensive. So it's like, Jason, do you think this is a Wii U scenario? Like, is this as bad as the Wii U? Okay, well, is it a 3DS scenario? Is it like, this is a good system that's going to be too expensive for a lot of people, and Nintendo will have to correct the price. Because I don't think it's that either.
Oh, I think it's more of that than a Wii U situation.
It's more of that than, obviously it's closer to that, yes, but I don't even think it's a 3DS situation.
Do you think it's in its own?
I think this is just like them finding the right price for the time, regardless of how we feel about it. Like it's
because of outside factors and things like that.
Factors, and everything else has gone up in price. So it's like one more thing being expensive. It's like, it sucks and we hate it. And like, the reason people do get angry is because video games are a price sensitive market. Like, and that just means people are aware of what things have costed in the past and what they should cost. And and so when stuff goes up, everyone who normally interacts with the marketplace to buy these things notices when a price goes up. And it's like, and they've already sort of subconsciously noticed everything else going up in their life that they're less sensitive to. So then all of the anger gets funneled onto the thing that they're very aware of what this should cost. But I still think overall that Nintendo will be able to push through this. And as long as they're offering up like very exciting games, I think people are going to probably show up. I think if it's a 3DS scenario, it's not as extreme as a 3DS. Like, it doesn't go down. Like, what was the 3DS? Like $350?
Yeah, it went down to $250 to go down $100.
I think it went like almost down to like $220. I thought like it went down like more than $100 or something like that. Maybe. And so I think if this goes down, it goes down $50, and it goes down $50 next year or something like that. But even
or they just make the 449 model the only one, and it comes with Mario Kart. They just eliminate
that's a good move. Okay, yeah, that's what they would do. Yeah,
they just eliminate the one that doesn't come with a game. It's 449 with Mario Kart. Off you go.
Yep, that's the move. You're right. Good. I think you nailed it. If they need to pull that lever, that's the lever they would pull. And then I saw Marino chats like snickly, even if tariffs went away completely, if all these tariffs went away, they would probably try to keep this price. Absolutely. That's the thing we should get at is, for as much as the environment is the factor here, these companies always want to charge as much as they possibly can. They want to get away with as much as they possibly can. That's the way the whole system is set up. So again, I can only get so mad because they're like, that's what you're supposed to do when you have a company. Charge as much as you can get away with. Right. But if we get past all this and the tariffs get repealed, these companies are looking for their moment to raise the price. Like, that's what happened with GPUs over the last 10 years. And we talk about like mid-price GPUs being $500, $600 now. That's crazy. In 2014, a mid-price, really awesome GPU was $200, $250. And then every generation after that, they were like, I think we can raise the price again. Let's go for it. I think we can raise the price again. And they were right. They were right. And they were right. And they were right until they weren't. And then even then, it's not like they retracted prices all that much. And sure, AMD would show up with an alternative that's a little bit less expensive compared to the current generation, but it's still super expensive compared to something 2-3 years ago. So it's any opportunity to raise the price, these companies will take it. This is an opportunity to set a new standard, and I think Nintendo is taking it, and everyone else in the industry now is looking at Nintendo doing it as an opportunity for them to do it. So it's just going to snowball now. And what do you think? Like, is Intergalactic going to be $70? That's going to be $80. It's not even out. It's not out until like 2027. Like, that's going to be $80.
Well, by then I think $79.99 will be established. Yeah, right. It's not going anywhere. The Band-Aid's off, fellas. Yep. Sorry, ladies and gents. The Band-Aid is off. Pandora's box is open. We are paying $80 from now on. Now, again, if Nintendo is doing this, some of them are, some of them aren't. Could that? The problem is if you're going to charge. But okay, so let me ask you this: what is the Switch 2 Zelda going to cost?
I mean, I do.
Is that 80 or is that more?
I think that's 80. I think I would really like to know what the card size is for Mario Kart 8 or Mario Kart World, compared to a Donkey Kong Bonanza. Because Donkey Kong Bonanza is 70, then Mario Kart World is 80. Like, what's the difference there? Is like, is there different in quality? It doesn't seem like it. Is it like, are you trying to tell us this is no? Is the card just actually bigger? And that's the reason. The reason I'm skeptical about that is because all of those Nintendo Switch games that are getting upgrades, they're $70. Not all of them are going to up to 80, right?
Only some of them. I think, and which is example. Breath of the Wild 70, Tears of the Kingdom's 80.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Okay. So, well, that's because Mike told me this one yesterday. That's because Breath of the Wild is $60 and Tears of the Kingdom is $70. So they're both getting a $10 increase. Okay. So, some of them are like it is Tears of the Kingdom being 80. It's like, okay, I get what you're saying. That's a $10 increase, but still, that's just $80 for a Switch 2 version of Tears of the Kingdom. And I know that game is not on the big, heavy, new, more storage game card for the Switch 2. No. But that's just 80 because it's got extra stuff. So I don't know if it's just always going to be about the card size. I get that is a thing that we could tell ourselves, like, this is the reason this is happening. I just think Nintendo is looking to like kind of have options in the market. So they're like, let's do Donkey Kong Bananas at 70. Let's Mario Kart we know is going to sell. No matter, people cannot resist it. They have never been able to resist it. Even like, you know, on the Wii, it sold 50 million copies. On the Switch, it sold 60 million copies. It's probably going to sell at least 35 million copies. And if it takes a hit because it's a higher price, 35 million people are still going to buy it at that higher price. And then if we need to discount it at that point, we still have that option to reach the rest of those 15 million people that we left on the table. At that point, I just think that there's no way around all this. It's So one last hypothetical for you. One last hypothetical that I think is going to be a little more relevant by the end of the year. The next 3D Mario adventure. Yeah. Because you have a 3D adventure in Donkey Kong that is 70, but you have a Mario game that is 80. I think they like play this out over the next year. And they look at the numbers, and then I think they make a final decision about like how frequently can we drop the $80 new game. And I think if Mario Kart meets a certain threshold, the next Mario could easily be $80. Yeah. Yep.
A quick clarification of something you guys were wondering about. So there are $80 retail. Yeah. Voice of God. Hello. What's up?
Thank you.
There are $80 Switch 2 versions of last gen games because the retail bundle is the Switch 1 game and the Switch 2 upgrade in the retail box.
Right.
So you are paying that $60 plus if it's a $20 upgrade, that's included in the MSRP for what they're branding as the Switch 2 version of it at retail.
Okay.
So you get $70 and $80 respectively for certain versions of those games, like Tears of the Kingdom being 80. Also, for some of you guys were looking at earlier, I checked it and they did say that the Mario Kart bundle is limited quantities available through the fall. It's while supplies last is how they are branding them.
So that's like a launch bundle. Interesting. So a launch bundle, and then it'll be so it's basically what we said, just in reverse. The bundle will go away and it'll be $449 without a game.
Well, I'll see. I'll believe it when I see that the bundle goes away because they just always had a Mario Kart bundle throughout the entirety of the Switch 1. So I think that, but I think they'll play around. They do that. So they do have the option of what you said. It's like maybe at that point, if things aren't going well, they bundle in Mario Kart with the 450 version. That could be their ambassador program equivalent, something a little like the diet version of that. Or if it goes well enough, they just say, okay, now the Mario Kart bundle is back at $500 and now it's got different colored Joy-Con too. Whatever. I think they've given themselves options here to kind of play the field as we sort of react to what they're doing. And I think in this moment, people yelling at them, it's going to have an effect. People should yell at these companies because I do think most people are going to end up showing up to buy this thing. And voting with your wallet, I've always tell people it's not as effective as you think. First of all, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to like make decisions using money or try to influence companies making money. It's an unfair thing. You don't really have a lot of leverage there as much as you think you do. No. And then yelling at them actually does occasionally make them feel a little ashamed. And they hate having that bad press. They really do. So keep yelling at them. Maybe it'll work. We'll see. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we got more Switch 2 details to talk about and what is going on in the UK with their most influential game. We'll get to that right after this. All right, we are back at it with game-breaking news. Jeff Grubb, Jason Fanelli, let's do the next story here. Nintendo confirms Switch 2 uses DLSS and ray tracing, but is being super vague about the details. This is from Wesley Yinpul at IGN. Nintendo has confirmed the Switch 2 uses DLSS and ray tracing technology, but has yet to go into detail on how exactly, or even to show them off. NVIDIA DLSS, which is Deep Learning Super Sampling, is an AI-powered technology that uses machine learning to upscale lower-resolution images in real time, enhancing both performance and image quality in games. Basically, it's an image reconstruction program. This week's hour-long Nintendo Direct revealed much about the $450 Switch 2, but Nintendo has kept technical information to a minimum. Even in the official Nintendo Switch 2 tech specs, there is only confirmation that the console uses a custom processor made by NVIDIA, and no more detail. In a hardware-focused roundtable Q&A in New York yesterday, attended by IGN, Nintendo representatives confirmed that the Switch 2 uses DLSS, but did not specify which version of the tech or whether it had been customized for Switch 2. Takuhiro Dota, Senior Director of the Programming Management Group, Entertainment Planning and Development Department at Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development Division, confirmed, we use DLSS upscaling technology, and that's something that we need to use as we develop games. And when it comes to the hardware, it is able to output TV at a max of 4K. Whether the software developer is going to use that as a native resolution or get it upscaled to from something else is up to them. They can choose, basically. I think it opens up a lot of options for the software developer to choose from. They did not go on to confirm, like, hey, what even is the NVIDIA GPU in there? We've had some leaks about this in the past. We'll get, I'm sure, more details, especially like once Digital Foundry gets their hands on this or whatever. And I'm sure a lot of other tech YouTubers will do that. But yeah, what do you think, Jason?
So if I could interrupt you real quick,
Please.
While we were preparing this show, I meant to put this in the chat and then forgot to do so. NVIDIA put out a press release saying that it is their AI-powered DLSS and 4K gaming. I have it in front of me. I can read it for you now.
That's probably why Nintendo is not talking about it, because NVIDIA gets to do this. All right, go ahead, please.
Yes. So the Nintendo Switch 2, unveiled April 2nd, takes performance to the next level, powered by a custom NVIDIA processor featuring NVIDIA GPU with dedicated RT cores and Tensor cores for stunning visuals and AI-driven enhancements. Let's see. The new RT cores bring real-time ray tracing, lifelike lighting, reflections, and shadows. Tensor cores power AI-driven features like deep learning super sampling, DLSS, boosting resolution for sharper details without sacrificing image quality. Tensor cores also enable AI-powered face tracking and background removal in video chat use cases, enhancing social gaming and streaming. Thank you, NVIDIA, for game chat. That's what I'm hearing there. With 10 times the graphics performance of the Nintendo Switch, 10 times, wow. The Nintendo Switch 2 delivers smoother gameplay and sharper visuals. Tensor cores boost AI-powered graphics while keeping power consumption efficient. RT cores enhance in-game realism with dynamic lighting and natural reflections. VRR via NVIDIA G-Sync in handheld mode ensures ultra-smooth, tear-free gameplay. So there you go. That came out at about 11:30, and we were getting ready at noon.
Still not a ton of like specific details, but yeah, right. Just kind of come out there and reminding everybody that this is going to use a lot of NVIDIA tech, and NVIDIA was super involved. That's good to know. Tensor cores are basically, that's the thing that actually runs DLSS. RT cores are ray tracing cores. That's the things that actually calculates the ray tracing in games. And having specified hardware specifically for these tasks really is important. At this point, you kind of can't just use generic traditional compute cores to do these things. Right. It's super slow. I remember when we first got the tensor cores and the ray tracing cores and comparing it to like the 10 generation, like the 1080 Ti or whatever, which was a great GPU. But it just really could not handle ray tracing at all because it just was not made for that. So this is going to be interesting to see, like, really, ray tracing on Switch 2 games. Is that something that is going to be common? I still doubt it. But, no. Ray traced shadows, ray traced ambient occlusion, which is like when you have light bouncing between two surfaces in like a corner to like have the light sort of dissipate as you get further into that corner, really does make things look a lot more lifelike. It's really crucially important to just like subtly improving image quality. You could do that with ray tracing. That's not too intense, but like real time, like dynamic global illumination, it's probably going to be pretty rare on the Switch 2, which, that's fine. Baked lighting has been good for forever. I think that's what most people say when they turn on ray tracing. Like, it looks, I guess, a little bit better, but boy, it runs like shit now. So I'm going to turn this off. Yeah. I think in this case that like they'll use it judiciously, sparingly. And I was never really expecting much ray tracing on the Switch 2. So that will not be missed, really. And then the DLSS stuff, that's promising, because I think all the improvements that NVIDIA's made to that, with the keeping in mind that NVIDIA likely provided a much older sort of base GPU for the Switch 2, because Nintendo likes to use the older technology, but still they customized the chip, they could put custom tensor cores in there. Having that in there and making sure that these games can render at 720 or even 540 and upscale to 1080 and then upscale to 1440 or upscale to 4K. That's good. That's exciting. And we saw the Treehouse was streaming Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in 4K today, and boy, it looked really good. It actually looks. It's weird how good these games look on Switch 2. I guess I wasn't even expecting that.
I think that's the game, Metroid Prime 4, that they're going to use as the early benchmark for that sort of visual fidelity. Just because, based on that stream, like you were saying, how insane it is looking. Even in the 4K stream of the Direct yesterday, there was some really good looking gameplay for Metroid Prime when it was up there. I'm genuinely curious about games like the new Mario. I keep going to the new 3D Mario. That could also be a very impressive looking game. I go back to remember when Sunshine came out on the GameCube and how absolutely floored everybody was about how that looked back then. And that game, I would argue, not completely, of course, but it holds up. Like it's obviously not meeting the 4K of today, but that game still visually, for what it was at the time, holds up. And I think the new Mario now on Switch 2 could be another evolution of that. Honestly, I got a lot of GameCube vibes from this whole thing.
Yep.
A lot of that GameCube era vibe from this entire Switch 2 thing. But that's another story. But as far as like the visual fidelity and the DLSS is concerned, it's exciting. It's something I think I'm glad to hear those words associated with Nintendo finally, especially 4K, 120 frames per second, things like that. Whether or not every game will use them on the Switch 2 remains to be seen. But as long as the first party games do, the places that we've not seen this sort of tech before, I think it'll work out pretty well for them.
Yeah, I think I'm excited because I think Nintendo will use this stuff in a relatively wise way, where it's
Sure.
They're not going to try to go all out with 4K native assets, but the fact that they can continue making games maybe at relatively the same fidelity as they were doing on the Switch 1, but now have a ton of overhead left over for extra animations and realistic physics and things like that. I mean, I think that's what we're seeing in Mario Kart World, or even Donkey Kong Bonanza, where these games look, like an HD Nintendo game since like the Wii U, because it's like art focused first, and then it looks great, and then of course like when you do see it in 4K, it looks stunning for sure, but it doesn't look like it completely a generational leap from one system to the other in terms of just like a still image. But once it goes in motion, all that extra animation flavor really does make it stand out. And that's where I want them to focus. I think that is the best place for them to be in terms of making their games look better. It's like, just make them more lifelike. Give Donkey Kong's booty some jiggle. Like, let's see what that thing can do.
The eyes popping out from the picture you posted of this guy. Like, the expressions on his face were probably the thing I keep remembering from that trailer. Just how expressive his whole head is morphing every time he reacts. That if they can do stuff like that across their entire portfolio, they'll be in good shape.
All right, let's keep going. GameSpot show's coming up soon, so let's try to get this ready for them. Switch 2 could fix two of the biggest issues on the Nintendo eShop. This is from Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. When the Switch 2 launches in June, longtime users could see two major improvements to the Nintendo eShop. Nintendo is aiming to address complaints of its digital storefront, which has long been criticized for being slow to navigate through and for being populated with cheap shovelware titles that often use underhanded methods to stand out. In a developer roundtable, Nintendo confirmed that the eShop will benefit from performance upgrades and that a new feature on the store will make finding games easier for users. Takuhiro Doda, Nintendo's Senior Director of Entertainment Planning and Development, explained in a Nintendo post how the Switch 2 hardware will make exploring the eShop faster and smoother, thanks to the system's performance capabilities. I think that's kind of expected. It should be faster, but them kind of being aware of it and being like, we're going to make it faster, at least out of the gate, that's welcome news for me. I hope that 5 years from now, we're not back in the same situation where it's like they've added a ton of cruft and didn't keep up with maintaining it, and now it runs like crap again, which is what happened with the Switch 1, because the Switch 1 eShop at launch ran fantastic, especially compared to the Wii U eShop, which was a nightmare to use. It took forever to load. For discoverability, producer for entertainment and planning and development Koyuichi Kawamoto briefly spoke about the Game Finds for You feature that allows users to see screenshots and videos for games. With this feature, I think players will be able to easily find something interesting without having to search every nook and cranny of the Nintendo eShop. So they're doing a little bit for discoverability. I don't know if this is like a, you know how on Steam you get the curated thing that's just like, hey, here's your finds for you because of the games you play and the games you've purchased previously. I don't know if that's what they're saying, but it sounds like something along those lines, maybe. At the very least, the fact that they even are mentioning discoverability is better than what was happening with the eShop on the Switch. You think that this is going to be a market improvement?
I hope so, because right now the Switch eShop, I can't let my kids browse on their own. I have to make sure that they're not seeing anything they're not supposed to see. It's the lack of curation
they
is
see a Sonic game. Ugh.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
No, keep that out. Yep.
They could run into Balan Wonderworld. I can't put that on my conscience. But I hope it works. I really do. But the Game Finds for You, it says Game Finds for You feature that allows users to see screenshots and videos for games. I saw that on the corner of my eye. Jesus Christ. Great. So you're going to put more screenshots and videos on the games that I have to search for myself?
Of Hentai Golf. Yeah. Every game has a screenshot from Hentai Golf now. Let's go.
Yeah. So, right. And then are they going to be censored? Are they going to be curated? Is it going to get worse? I don't know. Jury's still out, I think. But again, the fact that they're even talking about it, cool.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. I'm hopeful. Switch 2's surprise minigame collection includes Guess the Frame Rate and Mario Bros. 4K from Chris Scullion at VGC. I'm sorry, this one really is going to send me continuously every time I think about it. This is the digital brochure that they showed off during the Direct. That's like, here, like, go to this part of the Joy-Con to learn what it can do and like learn where the magnets are and learn about HD Rumble 2. And they have a Guess the Frame Rate game. Honestly, it looks like that scene from Vegas Vacation where he goes into the really shitty casino and they're like, guess a number between 1 through 10, or which hand is the money in? And he's like, oh, war. I love war. It reminds me of that. Like, this is the cheap Vegas casino compared to like PlayStation's Astrobot, which comes included with, or Astro's Playroom, which comes included with the PS5 for free. We did like get maybe a little bit of pricing information about this. It's 990 yen in Japan. You could maybe say that means it's going to be around $10. If you translate that to USD right now, it's closer to like $6. So it could be anywhere from $5 to $10. All right, at least it's not 80, but it should just be included. This is nuts. I continue, like they showed more of it in the Playhouse stream today. I continue to think it looks kind of bad.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's par for the course. We talked about how it shouldn't be priced, it should be free, but it's par for the course with everything else on Switch 2. If you want the Switch 2 edition, you have to get the $10 upgrade pack to get the right tutorial. So if that's what this is, it's a welcome tour. It's just showing you how to. I love how it's like, this is where the magnets are. Yeah, this is the mouse function. I showed the Direct to my kids yesterday, and my older one was like, do they think people not know how this works? And I'm like, maybe they don't. Maybe they think we're all dumb. I don't know. But yeah, that did not enthuse her at all. It is. I can't complain too much because I'm a sucker and I'm just going to do it for the memes.
Yeah, right? I'm probably going to get it too.
If it's $10, I'm going to drop it just to be like, what the hell did they think this was worth $10 for? At
a certain point, I'm the kind of sucker that's like, well, I'm already spending $500. Like, what is another $10? But honestly, I'm probably going to be like, well, I'm already spending $500. I should really make this thing worth it by getting another $70 game. Let's get some third-party games. Let's get Madden. Let's get this thing as well. And like another $10 on top. Just throw it on the pile at that point. That's the sucker I am. So I'm gonna end up getting this thing that I have said nothing nice about so far. I don't know what's wrong with me. Everything. I mean, may be wrong with me.
I have 4 words, and the voice of God will agree with me. Street Fighter 6 Amiibo, and that's just like that was targeted at me specifically. Yep. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna do it. I want to see the Mario Fog of War effect, whatever the hell that is. But great.
Yeah, we're right now, thanks to VGC, we're watching their Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour gameplay video that's up on YouTube. People should go check it out. And Andy here is playing the Guess the Frame Rate game, or he was a second ago. And it's just like, there are GIFs that are like, 15 years old, showing the difference between like 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second. And it's just that, but now you get to like guess which one is 30 and which one's 60. That's all it is. It is like kind of the bare minimum. Now, I like this idea of Super Mario Brothers 4K, like 1:1, where it's showing you what it's like if you were to stretch the pixels across the entirety of a 4K screen to show how the entire level will fit in there. Like, okay, that's neat, but that is also just so obviously tech demo included in the system bullshit. I get why people hate this goddamn company. I really do. All right.
They are super weird, aren't they?
They're super weird. Absolutely. A Piranha Plant version of the Switch 2 camera will be available at launch. I might get this one.
Me too. It's awesome.
Yeah, it looks really cute. It's
mouth opens.
Yeah, mouth opens, and then you can see the camera. Can you close it so like when you want the camera hidden, it like actually shutters so people can't see? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Let's see. According to the retailer, the Piranha Plant camera is priced at €40, which is 20 euro cheaper than Nintendo's official Switch 2 camera. This one's from Hori, so I bet it's worse quality. And you can plug any USB camera into the Switch 2 for the most part. It's got a USB-C port on top, so you're probably going to want one that can plug into that. I'm sure you can get an adapter to make just about anything work, but yeah, the $40 for like a 540p camera from Hori, that looks like a Piranha Plant. We'll see. I probably am only going to use this camera 4 to 5 times throughout the life of the Switch 2, occasionally for content, maybe, and then maybe one time with the family that's up in Michigan or whatever. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, my purchase of the camera is directly related to how many of my friends also get the Switch 2. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, and people like Sean and Marino are saying, Hori's, honestly, €40 doesn't mean it's going to be worse. Hori makes better stuff, so maybe the Nintendo camera will be 540p, and this one will be 720 or 1080, and they're just charging the right price for that stuff because Hori does source quality components. All right, last story here, and then we got to wrap up. BAFTA announces the most influential video game of all time, and it's a real head scratcher. This is from Vicky Blake at IGN. I'm just going to go here. Let's go through the list. I'm going to start here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
21.
9, 10. I'm going to start with the 10. Number 10 is The Sims, then Half-Life 2, then, and I'm going up, everybody. So Super Mario 64 is more relevant. And then above Super Mario 64 as the most influential game of all time is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Now's a good time to point out that this was a fan vote, and people are just voting their feelings, apparently. Then Minecraft, then Ocarina of Time, then Half-Life, Super Mario Brothers, number 3. Above that, number 2 is Doom. This list sounding pretty decent, other than obviously the one weird one that people are just playing in the moment. Number 1, Shenmue. What are you talking about? Okay, look, I will give you it's influential, sure. It's not even one of the top 20 most influential games. It's got like some elements that really people can look back to and be like, this is stuff that we would really figure out later. But Shenmue at number 1, above Doom. Above Super Mario Brothers?
BAFTA, more like DAFTA, am I right? Jeez Louise. This list is weird. It's a weird Metal Gear. Oh, and you went down to 10. I'm going to go to 11. Tetris.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Tetris at 11.
Yeah. And World also of Warcraft below is on there. Yeah. Final Fantasy
7 is there.
Grand Theft Auto 3. Yeah.
And the first one. There's 2 Grand Theft Autos on there.
Yeah.
What is happening?
All right. The UK, as always, smoking something. I love y'all over there. You guys keep doing your thing. Someone bring me all of the UK Shenmue fans. I want to talk to you. I want to see what you guys are all thinking. All right. That does it for the headlines. We have, let's see here, somewhere. Let me close this Andy Robinson video. The giant bomb polls from the last couple of days. There we go. Okay, grade the Switch 2 Direct, and let's see. Do you think we get Final Fantasy IX Remake for the game's 25th anniversary this year? We asked that. We didn't ever answer that one. I voted yes, and so did 43% of respondents. 57% of people still doubt we're getting Final Fantasy IX Remake this year, which they haven't mentioned anything, so I don't blame people. But it was in that NVIDIA leak, so I'm hopeful. How about you, Jason?
Seems like something that would be announced in the June SGF time frame to be released towards the end of the year, if not winter 2026, because I imagine they're treating it as a 25th anniversary fiscal celebration. So that could include the beginning of 2026 as well. But yes, I think I voted yes as well.
And they could announce it for the 25th anniversary and release it next year, right? That's the kind of thing they could easily do.
Yes, yeah.
And make that make sense. Grade the Switch 2 Direct. I I'm just going to go with the B. That is how, because I had plenty of games that I was super interested in. Oh, I didn't. Let me refresh here because I think we got some votes. I only posted this like an hour ago. Most people are at the B, 45%. 17% are C, 8% are D or lower, and 30% gave it an A. And that's, 860 votes. So we're still kind of early. Like I said, I posted this about an hour ago. Jason, I don't know. When I see this and then I see the chat saying drop the price, I do think there's going to be a disconnect here. I think there are a lot of people who are like, God, I've been waiting for a Switch 2. That pent up demand makes it so I'm not even really feeling the price. I kind of honestly, if I'm talking to like the dark part of myself, I would pay even more. And so I know. And I think there's a lot of people are like, it had that new Donkey Kong, the Mario Kart looks good, and all the other stuff that they're promising. GameCube games, that's a B. I'm going to want to get this thing at some point this year. And then still 30% of people are at an A. They're like, they aced it. They nailed it. And I do think like the pricing is going to be included in how people are feeling about that direct. Maybe not entirely. Maybe some people are just like separating those two things, but I think most people are combining their feelings and answering here. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a very interesting rest of this year for Nintendo, and I am looking forward to how like it all plays out. It's going to be interesting one way or the other. All right,
sir.
Let's see here. New poll question: are you getting a Switch 2 this year? I think is how we're going to phrase it. This year. Now, don't feel about launch, but this year, are you going to try to get a Switch 2? Yes or no? We'll get the results of that. Talk about it on Game Breaking News here on the Power Block with Giant Bomb and GameSpot tomorrow. Speaking of the Power Block, we have, let's see, later today is the voicemail dump truck. I think we got to figure out how is Jan going to be back in time for that voice of God? Do you know? I can't remember.
Whoa, figure that out.
We're going to figure all this out, everybody. In the meantime, though, Jason Fanelli, thank you so much for hanging out with me and talking about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
Always a blast, my friend. Talk soon.
Thank you all for watching and listening. Please stick around on the Power Block. GameSpot show should be up next. I think after that, Tom Caswell is going to be playing the return of Verdansk, the map for Call of Duty, Warzone. Cool. So look out for all of that, and then voicemail dump truck after that. And then we'll be back tomorrow with even more new stuff. Until then, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
Pow, pow, Power Block.
Yeah. Pow, pow, pow. Blah, blah.